Hello everybody, welcome to my random channel. My name is Kamaleao and well, this is the pretty much necessary end of the year top 10 games video. You can't really get around making one of these. But, well, I think I'll enjoy it. These games are in no particular order because for me, which game is my favorite game very much depends on my mood at the moment. So these are just going to be the games that I enjoyed most playing this year. And the second special kind of twist in this video is that it's not going to be the games of 2015. I often play older games, I rarely play games when they release. So a video of my games of 2015, which came out in 2015, would be quite short. So this is going to be a video of my favorite games that I played in 2015. For one reason or another, maybe because there's a certain mod out for it, or I just came across it this year, or it became very cheap this year, or it received a game update that made it playable this year. Such things happen. And well, that's about it. Let's get started. First game I'm going to talk about is already running, Hearthstone. Now, Hearthstone is not a new game by any means, but I did play it quite a lot this year, and I really enjoyed it. Why so? Well, the game is full of RNG, that's bad. It's full of face hunters, that's also bad. And all in all, it's still quite good. Very enjoyable. When you're not getting screwed over extremely. I think I'll start with the positive aspects of the game now. I really like the deck building, and the deck building aspect gets better and better with more cards being introduced, even if those cards aren't necessarily good. If you have more tools to work with, you can create more wacky decks, especially because I'm not really into the high game. I have no interest in becoming legendary or anything. I just want to play around and have fun. So just going into my card collection and trying to build a deck. Sometimes I try to build a deck that's very strong, and that's interesting to do. Sometimes I pick a certain mechanic like Death Rattle or Overload or something like that, and just try to make a deck work with that or around that, with combos including that. And yeah, working around with that, I think it's very interesting. And with new expansions coming out, with like the Grand Tournament and League of Explorers and everything, we have more and more cards to play with, more and more mechanics, and even though the decks that we get out of it are not necessarily good or strong, quite often they're not, but it's still fun to make them. Like a Warlock Hobgoblin deck or something like that, where you say, okay, you're not going to get legendary with that, but when it works, it's hilarious. There are, of course, problems. One problem, for me, the biggest problem is that face decks, aggro decks are ridiculously strong. It's ridiculously good to just go face all the time. And that can destroy quite a lot of games. For one thing, the large majority of cards that are useless, or maybe not a large majority, but a large number of cards which are considered useless in Hearthstone, are so because they're simply too slow. For example, Ysera. Okay, Ysera is maybe not the best example because by now there are one or two decks like the Dragon Priest where Ysera is viable, but for a long time she wasn't. Not because it isn't a good card, it's a great card. Ysera is extremely powerful, but by turn 9 you're usually already dead, or you had already won the game, so Ysera is pointless. And that's the case with many others, like Cairn. Cairn is, for the value of that card, is quite high. But, well, it can be silenced, that's one thing that speaks against it, but more about it is he's just too slow. He's not going to turn around a game, and by that, against aggro decks, you're pretty much dead already anyway. So aggro is a problem, I think. I don't think that it should be nerfed so hard that it's not viable anymore, but there needs to be more there needs to be more tools against it, I think. Another problem I have is with Arena, because Arena, for me, I like Arena, I like the draft mode. I think it's very fun, and it forces you to play with cards you otherwise wouldn't play with. But yeah, the randomness makes it that I've had Arena runs which were 0-3 and didn't last 10 minutes. Just because, like, one game I had a hunter who had essentially drafted the perfect face rush deck and killed me in 4 or 5 turns. Another one where I essentially drew my mana curve in reverse order, and I couldn't play a card before turn 4 and was dead by turn 6. And stuff like that, and that happens. It doesn't happen too often, but it does happen, and that's incredibly frustrating. I mean, I never pay for Arena because of that, mostly. Because I say, if I pay gold and something like that happens, I say, okay, this is bullshit, but who cares? But if I pay money for that, I'm saying, okay, I just paid money to get completely screwed. And that's just stupid. So, yeah, the balancing there, not perfect for my taste. Another big advantage of this game for me is that it's one of the few games on iOS that I actually enjoy. It's pretty much the only game on my iPad that I use. So when I can't or don't want to take my laptop somewhere because it's quite big and clunky and only have my tablet with me, and I have some time to kill wherever I am, Hearthstone is just a great thing I can play in between, because the rounds aren't too long, or they can be if you play my Undying Warrior, they can be quite long. So yeah, that's pretty much Hearthstone for me. I played it a lot this year. I probably will continue playing it for quite some time. And all in all, it's fun. If, and only if, you can take the bullshit that it does sometimes to you, which is insane. You have to be RNG resistant. You have to be okay with sometimes the RNG completely screwing you and you losing games where even if you had foreseen exactly what was going to happen, you could not have changed the outcome of the game. That's just going to happen from time to time. But all in all, still, I like the game. I still like it. Okay, so the next game on my list is Darksiders 2. The company that made Darksiders unfortunately went bankrupt, but the game itself is amazing. I really, really liked it. I did play Darksiders 1, and this year Darksiders at the end of last year, and now this year started Darksiders 2. I got them both very, very cheap in some, I don't know if it was a Steam sale or some other kind of sale, but they were on sale, they were dirt as cheap. Yeah, I'll just keep it like that. Yeah, very, very cheap. And I heard a little bit about them. The only thing I had really heard about them was they're essentially a Legend of Zelda for adults. Now, as an adult, I still really, really enjoyed Legend of Zelda, so I thought, okay, a bit more mature Legend of Zelda-esque game would be probably great for me. And they are. Darksiders 1 is already quite good, but it had some pacing issues, and at the end I just felt that it dragged out a bit. And Darksiders 2 improved for me on nearly every aspect of the game. The combat feels a bit more fluid. There's now a loot system, an inventory system, you have equipment you can use, you have the magic aspect of the game is more in depth. You have more abilities. You can summon ghouls and stuff to fight for you. You have more flashy abilities. The movement feels fluid, and just feels great, and it is very, very Zelda-esque. You go into dungeons and you find the map of the dungeon, you find special items in the dungeon that help you get through it, and you have a lot of puzzles. It's just, essentially, it's nothing better to say about it than it's a more mature Legend of Zelda, which is just great. I mean, what more do you want from a game like that? The things I did not enjoy too much about it were the puzzles in the temples. They can be quite repetitive from time to time. They're mostly push around stuff into the correct position, or blow up stuff at the right position, and then the next door opens and you can progress to the next area. That's not the most creative. So the puzzle aspect, it's not bad. It's just more variety would have been nice, because they're all essentially variations of the same thing, more or less. There are exceptions, but on the large part, it's find the big shiny ball and push it into the right spot on the ground, and then the next door opens. And sometimes you have to open doors in between, or find the blow up the orb you have to push and stuff like that. But yeah, it could have done either with less of those, or just even better would have been more variety. But apart from that, you have good gameplay, interesting lore, interesting story. Death is a pretty cool character. The graphics look nice, and the world itself has a nice broken, falling, decaying feel about it. It's very, very cool. One problem I have with... That's not Darksiders 2 specific. It's essentially with every third-person game I've played, the camera. And I don't think that this is a problem that'll ever be solved 100%. You just have this... The camera is clunky from time to time. It gets stuck on the wall from time to time. And personally, I've never played a single third-person game where that doesn't happen. So I'm not really criticizing Darksiders 2 specifically for that. It's, from my experience, a general third-person game problem that you have. I mean, from the top of my head, I can't think of a game where that was not a problem from time to time. Some have it more, some have it less. It's not too dominant a problem in Darksiders 2, but it does happen. And it can be annoying when you have a jumpy passage and the camera just screws you over. I think everybody has experienced that, and it's not nice. And it does happen, but not too often, so I think it's tolerable. All in all, I did enjoy the game, and I'm still playing it from time to time, just for the feel of the world and running around feeling powerful as I slaughter things with my sight. That's just nice. Darksiders 2. Not a game of 2015, but I played it this year because it's very, very cheap now. Dirt is cheap, and you can get it easily on Steam or some other website. Next one in line is Heroes of the Storm. Again, a game that did not come out in 2015, I think. And for me, this game is... I did not expect to like it as much as I do at first, because I've played the StarCraft variations of MOBA, I've played the original Dota map in Warcraft 3. I did play a bit of Dota 2, I did play a lot of League of Legends for several years. And for me it felt like I have MOBA fatigue, because it all felt, yeah, same thing, same old, same old. There's not too much. I know fanboys of LoL and of Dota will probably kill me for that comment, but they're not really different games. They feel very, very repetitive and very much the same for me. With time, I mean, I played years of them, so obviously there is something to them, but with years of them, they feel pretty much the same after a while. And Heroes does enough things different to get around that fatigue for me. The biggest differences are that there's, if there's anybody who has not played this game yet, the biggest differences are that you have no items, no gold. Your character progression is only through level, and every second level up you get the choice between a number of skills, or passive or active skills, which improve your abilities or give you new ones. Like you can have your abilities do more damage, or do it an additional slow, or have less cooldown, or you can get a new ability that gives you a shield, or gives your teammates a shield, or that lets you teleport for a short distance. Essentially it gives you flash, or something like that. And another thing is that there is no individual experience, but experience is shared among the team. That has, for me, great advantages because the 2 or 3 lanes per map, so you're more incentivized to go roaming, because when there's one guy on each lane, you get all the experience you can, and everybody who's freed up from that can go around and do other stuff on the map. Next advantage for me is that there are different maps, lots of different maps, quite a number of them, which all have a little bit of a different feel to them, and you have to do different stuff on them. They're not that different. It's essentially, most of the maps are, you have your lanes, you have your usual lane fighting, and then there is objectives on the map which spawn periodically, and you have to go there and take them. And that's more or less it. But they are different enough, for me at least, to enjoy the different maps and to make certain characters be better or worse on different maps. So there's a bit more variety there. You don't play the same map over and over again. You play different maps with different hero setups, and that makes it a bit more varied. Another great thing for me is I really despise the laning phase in LoL and Dota. I don't think that it's in any way interesting. Dota even less so than LoL, because of the deny mechanic. I know people love it because it gives it a higher skill ceiling, that you have to last hit enemy minions and last hit your own minions. But for me that's just a drawn out prequel to the actual game, which is the fighting against the other players. You do that a bit on the lane too, I know. But at the beginning of LoL and Dota, of every game, that's not the focus. The beginning of LoL and Dota games, at least when I played them, the focus was always win your lane, and you win your lane by getting more minion kills than your opponent in any way possible. And in Heroes, that's not the case, because you get the experience from minions when they die when you're close to them, no matter what you did. You didn't have to last hit anything. Towers don't help you as much. They're not that strong, and they always focus minions first. So running into your tower, even if you get punched standing right next to your tower, the tower will ignore the enemy hero if there are enemy minions nearby. So pushing is very much, it's good. And also the towers have limited ammo, so if you push enough of your minions into the enemy tower won't fire anymore. The result of that is that this game is very focused on hero versus hero fights and team versus team fights from the get-go. The game starts, and from the very beginning with most heroes, there are of course exceptions, heroes that are better suited for pushing the lane and killing minions and killing buildings, but most of the time the focus is killing the other team, killing the other heroes. And that's what I play online games against humans for. I don't go online and play a game against humans to fight AI minions for 10 to 15 minutes. I don't want to do that. If I want to do that, I play a single player game. I go online and play against other people to play against those other people. And Heroes does exactly that. You go in, and from the get-go, you start punching enemy heroes. Another nice thing is the hero variety. It's not as big as Dota or LoL at the moment. Obviously, it's a newer game. The heroes are getting released not as quickly. Or I don't know. I mean, Dota or LoL released its heroes also in a varying speed. But new heroes are getting added to the game periodically. And through that, the hero selection is by now big enough to have varied games. Also, there are a number of heroes which can be played in several styles, like Karazim, the monk from Diablo 3. You can either build him extremely as a healer and very, very tanky, very defensive, who only gives heals and shields to his his allies, and is not very, very dangerous on his own. But on the other hand, you can also build him quite aggressively, and then he is more able to hold his own and still heal a bit. So you can change that around depending on your opponent's team composition, your team composition. And I think that's a nice thing to do that. And they are starting to get really wacky with Cho'Gall, the latest edition, which is a single hero, which is essentially played by two people at the same time. It's a double-headed ogre mage from Warcraft. And one of them plays Cho, the other one plays Gall, and one of the players can move around and has physical abilities and uses the physical attacks, and the other one can only cast spells, but he can't control where you're moving, and that's just hilarious. So that's the stuff I really enjoy about this game. There are of course problems, as with every game. One of the negative things is the community. I think it's ridiculously less toxic than League of Legends. There's no comparison there. But then again, League of Legends is pretty much famous for having the worst and most toxic community of any game ever in the world. So saying it is less toxic than League of Legends is not saying much. But yeah, I do feel from my personal, very subjective experience that the community is not too toxic, but it is more toxic than most other games I've played. I think that's the most toxic communities I've ever played with were all in MOBAs. I think that's a bit strange. I'm not saying that MOBA players are bad people, but I'd like to. It seems that way sometimes. This is going to be bad. No, there are nice people everywhere, but in MOBAs you tend to meet more shitty ones, and Heroes is not an exception of that rule. Apart from that, there are some technical difficulties. Sometimes I have very inexplicable frame rate drops. They are getting less frequent with time, but they're still there, and that's a little bit of a shame. Otherwise, it's a fun game. Lots of map types, lots of heroes. Not really much bad to say about it. If you are into the extremely cutthroat, I want very, very competitive gaming, Heroes is probably not the MOBA for you. I liked it, and I always played it as kind of a relax MOBA, because it's fun. It's fun, it's varied, it doesn't take itself too serious, and I think that's a great thing. And the next game in line is Saints Row 4. I got Saints Row 4, and I think it was the summer Steam sale or something, or fall Steam sale, something like that. Some Steam sale. There's so many of them. And it's a very, very cheap game by now. You can get it with tons of DLC and additional missions and stuff like that, which is great. The game itself, I thought it's extremely funny. It's just wacky. It's full of references to other games, and other franchises like Metal Gear Solid and Tron and everything. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. For me, I enjoyed it more than any GTA game since GTA 2 multiplayer, I think. Just because it's so crazy. You can do a lot of stuff. There are interesting bits and pieces of side missions, though I'm not too much a fan of those. If you are the guy who likes big filled sandboxes with lots and lots of stuff to do, you get this here. What I liked about it is just the humor. It's very I mean, the guy talking, hey, if I could become president of the United States again, we could do things differently this time. Like, more stripper poles in the White House. You installed stripper poles in the White House? Yeah, of course, on the first day. And so, that's the kind of humor. I'm really into that kind of humor. If you're not, this is probably not your game. If you are, this is your game. Then there's stuff like Metal Gear Solid spoofs, and they acknowledge that at the same time while they're doing it, and it has made me laugh so many times. The superpowers, they are fun to use, and it's just a blast. I can't really explain it because this game has weaknesses. It does have. The side missions, if you don't want to do them, there's lots of them, but for me personally, I'm not a side mission kind of guy, like get most points in this activity. That's not my type of thing. And that makes the game, it cuts a lot of content from the game, if you don't like that. There's still a lot to do here, but a lot of it is not really that interesting. Of the side activities. The main missions are, I think, interesting simply because of the humor and the way they are executed. You get a lot of differently inspired stuff. And they're constantly acknowledging that this is a game and that things in the game are strange. I mean, just the Enter the Dominatrix DLC, where the characters are sitting there, we wanted to do this and that, but we didn't have the budget for it, and then there's talking, okay, and now there's the boring part of the game, there's must be like lots of fetch quests and 10 escort missions and stuff like that. On another instance, you have to protect something, and the timer says 1 hour, and the main character starts bickering and saying, what, to his hacking buddy, to Kenzie. It's like, what? An hour? These things usually take 3-4 minutes tops. And then she says, oh yeah, okay, I think we can change that around, give me a moment. And then it changes to a more reasonable time. And all these little things, they really made me laugh and made me enjoy the game quite a lot. The problems of this game, I think, it does have them, a number of them. Like, I think Total Biscuit in his review of the game when he did it already said a lot of it, and I consider most of it is pretty much accurate. With the addition of hero powers, the cars feel pretty much useless. I use them from time to time because it's cool, especially the Scallywagon. I think it's incredibly funny, but you're much faster when you just run with super speed and jump and fly and everything. The cars feel, unnecessary. Your ability to call in people at the beginning or at a certain point of the game is pretty much bad because they can't keep up with you, they die quickly, and you're just strong on your own. Later in the game, you can upgrade your followers to have hero powers too, or to have superpowers too, and that makes them better and more usable. But still, they feel a bit unnecessary and a bit pointless, which is sad. So you're not really running around with your gang in this game that much. Problematic, otherwise, not much for me. I mean, You could probably make the argument that it's not that much of a difference or an improvement over Saints Row 3, which I can't say that much about because I didn't play Saints Row 3. So for me, Saints Row 4, being the first Saints Row that I really played a lot, it's a great game. It has humor that's right up my alley. It has references, funny references to other video games. It references itself and makes fun of itself. And it's just a wacky sandbox where you can do lots of funny things. And yeah, that's just my thing, pretty much. So therefore, Saints Row 4 was, of the open world games I played this year, this was definitely the one that I played most and enjoyed the most. Saints Row 4 and the Scallywagon. That's just hilarious. For me. I think this game depends a lot on your humor. If you get the references, if you enjoy a game that references a lot and makes a lot of fun of stuff, then this is definitely worth a look. And it's, again, very cheap at the moment. So yeah, Saints Row 4. This War of Mine. Oh boy. Again, an older game. I don't think that it came out in 2015. Again, something I picked up during a Steam sale. And again, I was very happy to have picked it up. Or very sad. But in a good way. And that's strange. And that's pretty much what the game does. It's very conflicting. The basic principle, if you have not played it yet, is you are a group of people in a pretty much broken down house during war in a war zone. And your goal is to survive for as long as possible. Or until you get saved. And you do that by picking up stuff. At the beginning you have some stuff in your house, and then you go out every night, or can go out every night, to scavenge the area around for raw material. You can then, during the daytime, build into equipment, make food out of it, fortify your building and everything. The thing is, the game is quite depressing. You constantly, or at least I constantly, had the feeling that it's the feeling of hopelessness the game conveys is very, very amazing. You can get around that if you start power gaming and really know the game in and out and start using the mechanics perfectly. The game becomes more easy and the feeling of dread becomes less apparent. But for me, I didn't do that. I just jumped in, didn't care about mechanics, and just started playing. And it was a very tense game. It still is. Because you constantly have trouble because you don't have enough material. You run out of food, you run out of medicine, you run out of cigarettes, and all your people are nicotine addicts. The scavenging becomes more and more dangerous because at the beginning you usually have places to go where there are no other people, and you can just go in, take what you want, and leave. But with time, there is no more material in those areas, and you have to go to the more dangerous areas where there are soldiers, where there are other scavengers, and it becomes very tense. But when you see somebody and you don't know is he an enemy or not. Is he just another scavenger? Is he friendly, or will he kill me on sight? And you have to make choices, and often these choices are both bad. You can try to approach somebody, and they might be friendly but not let you take anything, and then that night will be wasted, and you have people back at your base that are starving, and you need to take stuff. On the other hand, if you steal his stuff, that will have negative influence on the morale of your people, up to the point where they can become depressed and just break down. It's the same with combat. If you kill people, you can't do that. It's not easy because well, your people are just refugees, they're just trying to hide. They're not soldiers. But you can, and with a little bit of skill, you can do it rather safely and efficiently. But again, your people are not soldiers, they're normal people. And killing people affects them. It makes them sad. They don't want to murder people, they just want to survive. And if you go around shooting everything on sight, they'll get very, very depressed, and yeah, they can break down and just do nothing anymore. And I think that's a very interesting take on the whole war game aspect, because when you play something like Duke Nukem or Call of Duty, you have your hero running around murdering thousands of people and not even shrugging about it. And here, if you kill 1 or 2 people with a guy, that can really affect them. It can really break them. And so you have to be very careful what you do, when you do it, and try to avoid fighting whenever you can. The negative point for me about this game was it becomes a bit repetitive, because the map is not very varied. You have like, I don't know, 3 starting houses, and the game always plays in the same house then for the rest of the game. The city area, yeah, there are different spots in there, but the individual spots are always the same. So the looted gas station will always be the looted gas station, and it will always have the same equipment in it. And while you have different starting people, differently set up maps with like a different variation of locations available, these individual locations always being the same, the maps, and therefore the maps only having limited variability. There are random factors in the game, random events, but for me that kind of hindered the replayability of this game. I really, really, really enjoyed the time I spent with it, but I don't think that I'll ever really go back to it, because you play the same map essentially, with exactly the same loot and exactly the same positions, with slightly different group of people, but they don't play that much different. One might run a bit faster, one can carry 2 more items than the other, but that's essentially it. There are some ability, they have the ability to customize the maps a bit, but for me that's not enough to get me back into the game, which is completely okay. I mean, it was very, very cheap. It's a simple game. It entertained me a lot for the time I played it, and it has done what I wanted it to do. So replayability for me, not so much. Still an awesome game, and it's a great experience. So if you haven't played this War of Mine yet, and then I can just, all I can say is try it, give it a try. It might not be the best game for you, because it's not action, and it is not fun, so to speak. I never stood up after playing this game and said, that was fun. But it is an interesting experience, and that's something that's worth a lot. On to the next game, Victor Vran. Again, I got this game very cheap on Good Old Games, or GOG as they're called. I think they don't want to be called Good Old Games anymore, because they don't only have old games. And Victor Vran is one of those. It came out on GOG, I think right away. It was released there, and it's a fun spin on the Diablo-esque games. I have not played Diablo 3 so far, by the way. I do own it. I have played it a little bit. but I have not really played it. I will play it next year when the new patch has come out and the new season has started. Then I'll dive into it with a few friends. But this is a Diablo-style game that does enough different to be interesting, compelling. You control your character, which is always the same one, Victor Vran, the guy who gives the game a name. You always play him. You can change him around a little bit, but not too much. And I think there are 3 like outfits for him, and that's it. So character variability is far less important than in other games like Diablo, but it makes up for it with other things. One is the controls are, I think, interesting. I think they are, and I'm not sure if they are better, but you run around with WASD. You can jump, you can dodge roll, and you control your abilities with the mouse. You can have 2 weapons equipped at the same time. Right now in this video I have a shotgun and a rapier, and you can switch between them quickly. Each has 3 abilities, each weapon. For example, the shotgun has regular shooting, 1 very strong shot that has a long cooldown, but if it's the killing blow, then the cooldown is reset immediately. So you can use that to kill off a large group of people quickly, and 1 like spread shot with knockback. And that's essentially it for every weapon. You have 1 basic, more or less basic attack skill, and then 2 special abilities. And the change between these 2 the ability to change around between 2 weapons makes for fluid combat. If you can chain together, like you shotgun them in the face, and when the big shotgun skills are on cooldown, you change the rapier, go in, stab a lot of people, use its lunge attack to get out of the groups, change back to the shotgun and shoot in again. And that's a very fluent, interesting fighting style, fighting mechanic. I liked it. There's a kind of a commentator in the game. I really liked it. I think the humor in it is good. It's not too much. The humor feels part of the world. It doesn't feel too much pushed into there. It's not full of references. It's essentially rooted inside the game itself, unlike Saints Row. And yeah, that's essentially it. It's a good, nice Diablo-style game. It's of course not perfect. I think the character variability is not really there, because the different outfits you can get for Victor Vran don't change too much around. With the different weapons, you have a number of different skills, but again, not too many. And personally, I felt that there aren't that many of the weapons which are actually useful. So variability is not the best in this game, but it makes up for it with a good story, solid story. It's interesting enough to play. The fighting system is very fluid, and that's for me the most important thing. Another great aspect of the game is, which personally I think every game should have, it has co-op mode, and co-op is just great. I'm a co-op whore. And yeah, Victor Vran. Not too much to say about it actually. It's just a solid Diablo-style game, which does enough different to not feel like a Diablo clone, but like a game of its own. It's not Diablo with different graphics, but it is a game of its own. And I have not played really a game like this that did enough different to feel different. The last game I think was Nox, also a great game. So therefore, Victor Vran really held my interest for quite a while. And Again, was nicely cheap, runs great on pretty much every system. Good game. Check it out on maybe on GOG, or I don't know if it's on Steam, but probably. I mean, I'm quite certain it's on Steam. Victor ran. On to the next game, which is Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Another game that came out, I think, 1 year, 2 years ago? Something along those lines. Not 2015, I think. And it's one of the games that I'm currently doing a run through or a playthrough on my channel. And yeah, this game is one of the few Lord of the Rings games that is actually great. As with many of those licensed games, there are quite a few games set in the Lord of the Rings universe, and most of them are either crap or close to crap. This game is not. This game is awesome. It's fun, it looks great, it plays well, it runs well. It's just, I really, really, really enjoyed it. Every second of it. The fighting is very fluid, the animations are awesome, the storyline is not great, but it's good. It's good enough. The problems I had with this game, the main problem, is difficulty level. And actually the difficulty level of this game pissed me off so much that I decided to make a video about it, or a special video about it, not only about this game but about difficulty in games in general, because the first time I played this game through, I essentially did not have any positive experience out of the Nemesis system. And the Nemesis system is pretty much what defines this game for many people. Because I didn't have anything, because this game for me was so ridiculously easy. And the idea of the Nemesis system is that there is that through your playthrough there will be a certain Uro captain which kills you several times and hunts you down and stuff like that, and he will become your personal nemesis and become stronger and stronger, and you will get like a personal hate relationship with him. And then at the end of the game, you get to fight him again. Spoiler, sorry. I mean, it's an old game. You probably heard about that anyway. And the thing is, for me, the first time I played it through, that didn't happen. I died maybe 2 or 3 times at the very beginning of the game because I didn't know how to play it, and had to get a feel for the controls and for the skills and whatever you do and need in this game. And then I never died anymore. So this whole, you have your nemesis, it never happened. And I didn't have this, certain Uro captains become ultra powerful and gain more and more abilities while they pummel you down. Never happened, because all of them died the first time I met them. And what I'm doing right now on my channel is like a run on hard. There are no difficulty settings in this game, so I tried to make it more difficult for myself by turning off button prompts and saying I'm not taking any health upgrades and stuff like that. And I hope that makes the game even more enjoyable, because even though the game was far too easy for me, I still enjoyed playing it a lot. And now I'm doing the hard run, I'm enjoying it even more. The fighting is, well, if you've played the Arkham games, it's a little bit similar. You have one attack button, one counter button, and that's essentially it. For me, even with the addition of like rhythm based, if you attack at the right moment, you get a higher combo rating and stuff like that, and critical hits. I feel that the fighting system is a bit shallow for my taste. I would have preferred something more varied, like with having different attacks that you can control. I mean, you have one special attack where you can punch somebody and that stuns them, but that's essentially it. So I like the fighting system. It felt okay, but I think it's an aspect that could be greatly improved upon. Could be far better. And that's a bit sad, I think, because there's much potential there to make an even better game. But the way it is, it's a great game. And if you haven't played it, and you should really pick it up and look into it, Shadow of Mordor. Or if you don't want to look at it yourself and just want to see what it's like, click on my other videos. There is a number of them up already, and there will be more over the course of the next few weeks to months, probably months. And yeah, all in all, this game really surprised me, because I don't expect much, if anything, from licensed games. And this is one of the few that really delivered. Oh, I love those animations. It's very visceral, very dark and gritty. It's not trying to be really a kid-friendly game, which I think is great. It fits the lore of and the feel of the Lord of the Rings world better than something kids-friendly. So yeah, Shadow of Mordor. It has its kinks and quirks, but it's good. It's a fun game, and I really did enjoy and will keep enjoying playing it the next year. Deus Ex Revision is next in line. Deus Ex Revision is, well, Deus Ex is probably the oldest game on the list for this year. It's very old. The Revision mod came out, I have no idea when. I don't really care when. I definitely found it this year, and finding the mod made me play the game again. Again, it's a playthrough that's going on the channel right now. And yeah, there's really not that much to say about Deus Ex that hasn't been said 1,000 times already. It's one of the best games ever made. It's just generally great. You have so much choices you can do. You can do every map, every mission in different ways. You have a lot of different ways to approach specific problems, and you can either go in guns blazing or you can try to stealth it. The story is very interesting and very well written, and yeah, it's an all-around great game that holds up today. As far as I'm concerned. And yeah, the only negative thing you could say about Deus Ex is it's very dated by now, and I mean, not gameplay wise or anything, but the graphics are a bit clunky, and technically it's not the best game anymore. But the Revision mod takes care of some of those problems. It improves the graphics a little bit, makes everything look a bit smoother. It improves the sound assets a little bit. I think they made an improved is probably very subjective, but they changed the soundtrack a bit. Personally, I feel that's an improvement. And yeah, the game is cheap, really cheap. And the Revision mod is free, so I don't know. This will be, even though it's one of the best games on this list, it will be probably the game I talk the least about, because it's Deus Ex. If you haven't played it, there's not much I have to tell you except go play it. Why not? What's wrong with you? It's a great game all around, and there's really not much negative to say about it, at least from my perspective. I don't really see. The game does what it does extremely well up until today. It's an awesome game, a great experience, and I love playing it. And with the Revision mod, it was just a great incentive for me to play it again, because the last time I played it through was ages ago. So yeah, short entrance on my list today. Deus Ex Revision mod, awesome game. go and try it. And the last game on my list for this year is Warhammer The End Times Vermintide, one of the few games I played this year that actually came out this year. And one of the few games I bought very, very quickly after launch, something I almost never do. But, well, I'm a big fan of the Warhammer franchise. I've played the tabletop for a long time, and well, Games Workshop is very liberal with their IP. There are tons of Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k games out there, and they're almost universally shit. And that's very, very sad. I mean, Dawn of War and the 40k universe was quite enjoyable, but in the fantasy universe, I don't really remember a game in the fantasy universe that I played and really enjoyed. I mean, there's Blood Bowl, but that's like a specialty game that's not really Warhammer Fantasy. It's like a subset of game inside the fantasy universe. But from the mainstream Warhammer Fantasy lore, I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head a Warhammer Fantasy game that I really enjoyed. And this one, for me, they pretty much nailed it. It's a horde mode, like Left 4 Dead is the obvious, place of inspiration for Vermintide. You play as one of 5 heroes in a group of 4, and you fight against Skaven. There are different maps with different objectives, and the heroes differ in their playstyle a little bit. Not too much, so it's not like if you don't have a specific character in your team you can't win the map. That's not the way it is. They just have slight advantages and disadvantages and slightly different playstyle to each other. Some more than others. Like the mage and the elf. The elf is what I'm playing right now. They are a bit more range oriented. The mage, because he doesn't have ammo, he just overheats if he shoots too much, or she overheats if she shoots too much. And the elf tends to have more ammo than most other characters. With the bow and arrow, you tend to have enough ammo to shoot a little bit more than other characters. But apart from that, the game is very melee oriented, and I like that. It's a very satisfying feeling to bash in a rat's head with a big hammer, or send it flying with a sword, hack off body parts. It's very, very satisfying. The game has another great advantage of having lots of difficulty settings, from easy, where it's really piss easy and you can essentially run through the map with little difficulty, towards Nightmare and Cataclysm, where things get really rough and tough, and you need to really work together as a team to make it through the map, and you have to know what you're doing. And I really like that. The game can be just a very simple go in and bash a lot of red people's head in kind of play when you want it. Just go into a game with lower difficulty setting. Or it can be, if you want, a really, really, really tough challenge. The thing is, if you want the challenge, don't play public. You need friends to play with if you want to play it on the higher difficulties, because, well, the pubbies... you have people like on level 2 or 3 who have no idea how the map works, who join Nightmare games because you get better loot at the end in those, and say, yeah, I played Left 4 Dead, how more difficult can it be? It's not more difficult, it's just a different game. And if you don't know the maps and you don't know how it works, that's not going to work, and you have that surprisingly often. So that's a problem. It does not have the versus mode that was apparently very, very beloved in the Left 4 Dead community. I don't know, I never played the versus mode a lot. I did try it once or twice, noticed that it's not my thing. And for me, it's better than Left 4 Dead because I prefer the melee combat, and the fluid switching between ranged and melee combat that's necessary here to the predominantly ranged combat of Left 4 Dead and games that in that style. But that's probably personal preference. If you prefer shooting, this is not for you. If you prefer melee, this is great. And I mean, for a Warhammer Fantasy nerd, finally a Warhammer Fantasy based game that's good. That's more than good. That's actually quite enjoyable. Therefore, I think I've already pumped 90 hours into Vermintide this year. And while I've been playing it a little bit less recently, I'm very certain that I will go back to it and play it from time to time again and again over the course of the next months. And they already added free DLC and gave some more items added some more items into the game, and it was successful enough, and the developers already said that they want to develop further for this game. So I think I'll expect more items, new maps, and new character classes. That would be probably the most obvious DLC, but I'm not certain what they will do. But yeah. Biggest gripe with the game: public games. But that's a problem with all these cooperative games that are tricky. That with public games, it's not. With public gaming and pubbies in your game, it's going to be very difficult to manage to do anything on higher difficulty levels. That's just the way it is. I don't think that you can put that as a negative for this game specifically, because that's a general problem of online co-op games. Apart from that, I really enjoyed Vermintide. It does what it does extremely well. The item, the loot generation at the end of the game is fun. By now they added something that even if you lose, you don't get nothing. You get a little bit of material. If you get enough material, you can craft random items out of that, or you can use it to activate abilities on your weapons. So while it still hurts to lose a game, especially right before the end of the map, it's no longer the way that you get nothing at all. At least you get something. So they really listened to the community there. That was one of the things that many people playing the game had a problem with. They said, okay, I've done this map and we managed to get all the way to the end. Can't I get anything? I mean, the last rat on the map killed our last guy, and it feels so bad to not get any reward at all. And now we get some reward. Not much, but some. And that's, for me, something very nice if you have a developer who tries to implement things where the community of the game says, hey, there's something here. We'd like to have that different. So yeah, that concludes my favorite games that I played in the year 2015. Very subjective, very not focused on the year 2015 release-wise, but just what I played. And that's based on a lot of different things you can see, like Deus Ex, because I noticed that there's a mod for it now that improves the game a bit, and other games because I ran across them in some kind of sale, and other games because they were released this year. So yeah, that was my year in gaming, more or less. I hope the next year we'll have lots of games like these, or that interest me as much as these. And that's it. My name's been Kamaleao. Thanks for